usual. All right, so, okay, yeah. The dog, John Deere is screaming, Jacob. That is true. Okay, so the quiz format, it's going to be an hour. There are 20 questions. 15 of them will be multiple choice, and they will be Themis style. So they will be similar to the types of questions that you find on Themis. There are also 5 fill in the blanks, and the fill in the blanks will be similar to the ones that you had on your previous quiz. So future interests and possessory interests. Make sure that you spell the interest correctly because ExamSoft will be auto-grading it. Make sure you write the interests the same way that they were written in your workbook. Some of you deviated from that a little bit in the first quiz, and particularly when it came to the order or whether you were talking about, just make sure you follow the exact phrases that are in the workbook. So no life of another being, the French term, or the Latin term. Also, let's see one more thing. Oh, if a name is listed and that person does not get anything, please write nothing. So I'm just repeating the instructions that are in the instructions, which I have posted on Teams already. So you'll get the ExamSoft, what is it, like the exam to download. Hold on a second, I just got an email from IT about when you'll get that. Okay, it says, yep, you will get an automatic email from ExamSoft when the exam is ready to download. If you do not get that email, please let Colton know, because I am not handling the ExamSoft exam. So make sure if you have any IT issues, there are 2 people you can contact, and that is Colton Wade over in IT and Monica Padilla, who is our IT tech specialist person. I don't have any access to all of ExamSoft, so. Okay. Also, before I forget, the sound is quiet. Before I forget, after talking to a couple of you, I have come to the realization that some of you have not been getting the notifications from Teams. The purpose of Teams was to decrease the number of emails that I send you so that everything can be all in one place. Teams is supposed to send you a digest if you don't log into it that summarizes the announcements that you missed. But apparently some of you aren't getting that email, even though I have checked with you to make sure that your notifications were set up properly. So I don't know what the deal is. Anyway, I sent you all an email that allows you to enter your email address into a link. And if you would prefer, I could just email you instead of putting the announcements in Teams. So I'm going to keep putting the announcements in Teams, but for those of you that are having issues with logging in or email, I'm happy to. I didn't Teams list that email. The topics to focus on, slide back up for just a minute. That is one of the next slides, so don't worry. Okay, so I said how to practice for the quiz, which was to do the Themis questions. And if you did not finish paying for the fees for the famous questions, you can do some MBE questions. You can, like I said, review quiz one problems as well. All right, here are the topics to focus on. I'll leave these up for a minute. I'm also happy to export this and post it in Teams if you'd like. So here are the topics you should focus on. You know, make sure you know your co-tenancies, the differences between them. Make sure you know the FHA and Civil Rights Act, so your Housing Act and the Civil Rights Act. Make sure you understand what is needed for delivery of deed, when eviction is permissible. Make sure you understand the differences between subleases and assignments and the privities that flow with each. Make sure you know how to write out a chain of title, and you understand whose interests are superior in a chain of title. Make sure you understand what the rules are for seller's duty to disclose. Review the elements for adverse possession. Understand what marketable title is. Understand the implied warranty of habitability. And constructive eviction as well. I forgot to put that up there, but I would add constructive eviction. You're going to want to understand the difference between a notice and a race notice, jurisdiction, and to be able to diagram the order of interest and figure out whose interest is superior. And then again, just review present and future interests. Questions on the topics to focus on?
Professor El-Sabawi, I have a quick question about the fill in the blanks.
Yep.
So in the workbook, if there is a rule against perpetuities violation, they do it in kind of a two-step. Should we just focus on the final answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do not need to see your work, so just give me your final answer. Yep, good question. Any other questions? All right.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
The email you just sent out with the form for those of us that weren't receiving notifications, it seems something went wrong on the back end, and I don't know if it's just me, but it's telling me the form doesn't exist when I try and access it.
Well, I'll tell you what, just go ahead and respond to that email and give me your give me your email address then. So since that form did not work, go ahead and I'm going to get an Excel spreadsheet, but go ahead and just email me and let me know, and I will email you.
Okay, will do.
Oh, sorry, Professor El-Sabawi, I had a quick question. With the chain of title, what did you say we needed to know again?
You need to know with the chain of title whose interests would be superior, and kind of understand how to diagram out a chain of title so that, you know, yeah, that was probably it. Yep. Any other questions? Okay. So I had a question about whether or not you need to know breaching of future covenants in regard to the rights of a remote guarantee. No, at this point, you don't have to. We're going to talk about those in future chapters, so you don't have to worry about it right now. Okay. Again, I'm going to export this and post it on Teams so you have a copy of these PowerPoint slides. All right, I had a couple of questions about the shelter rule. And so I'd like to go over the shelter rule. It's like I didn't organize my slides well, but so this question specifically asks about Board of Education and hypothetical one, and kind of what the difference is between the two of them. So here's the shelter rules. Let's start there. And I bolded the shelter rule and bolded, underlined it. Gosh, my great brain. Okay. So under the shelter rule, a bona fide purchaser is allowed to transfer his protection to a later grantee. Let's look at some keywords here. So for the shelter rule to apply, you need a bona fide purchaser. So you need to make sure that they meet the requirements for a bona fide purchaser, which are that they took without notice, actual or constructive notice. All right. So it allows somebody who takes as a bona fide purchaser to transfer that protection to a later grantee. So if we look at the Board of Education, I'll go back to that. If we look at the Board of Education facts, we see that here there isn't, the question was, why does the shelter rule not apply here? Well, there is no, okay, so I guess you could ask why, I'm forgetting the names of DNW right now, why DNW's purchase, let's say they were a bona fide purchaser, and if they were a bona fide purchaser, could we then say that the Board of Education has applied the shelter rule and they would then get the bona fide status, right? But see, the reason it didn't really apply in this particular case, or it didn't need to apply in this case, was because in this case we had race and notice. So it was a race notice jurisdiction. The last bona fide purchaser that records would take. So if you look here at this chain of title that I diagrammed out, the Board of Education takes and records at the same time. So technically, Hughes was a later bona fide purchaser. Although most courts would find that Hughes was a purchaser at step one, the court and Board of Education of Minneapolis v. Hughes found instead that really H did not purchase the property until he put his name on the deed, which happened in step 4. So by that analysis, Hughes was a later bona fide purchaser. And because he was a later bona fide purchaser and he recorded, then he would be the one who takes. And that's different from the facts of hypothetical 1, because here we don't have that weird rule where the grantee did not fill in their name into the deed, right? And so there's a purchase at a different time than when they actually got the deed. So that's the difference between HYPO 1 and the Board of Education case. Also for HYPO 1, as you can see, S conveys to C, and C knows about the SB deed. Because C knows about the SB deed, when you apply the shelter rule, you can't get the protection because C is not a bona fide purchaser, right? So you apply the shelter rule and then you realize that C is not a bona fide purchaser. I don't think I clarified that when I was going over this in your slides. So because C is not a bona fide purchaser, then D does not get the protection of a bona fide purchaser. All right? I hope that cleared that up. Okay. The next question was on, I think it was this hypothetical. Sometimes when you'll give me the HYPO number, I can't figure out which HYPO it is because there are multiple ones with that number. So hopefully this was the right one. S conveys to B, who does not record. Then S conveys to C, who does not record. C conveys to D, but D knows about S and B's deed. So this tells you that on their own, D is not a bona fide purchaser because they have actual knowledge. so C records, B records, and D records. The correct answer to this is that B is the one with the superior title. Why is that? Well, because D cannot, oh wait, sorry, that's the wrong answer. Back up, rewind. D is the one that owns the property. So again, why does D own the property, even though they're technically, I wish I could write on this slide, they're technically not the bona fide purchaser, right? Because they knew, and to be a bona fide purchaser, you need to neither have constructive or actual notice. Well, you can, under the shelter rule, take advantage of C's bona fide status. Okay. So C's bona fide status, C has bona fide status because C did not know about S's conveyance to B. So go back to the top. S conveys to B, who does not record. S conveys to C, who does not record. So C doesn't know about the prior transfer to B. And so here, C is a bona fide purchaser. So when they convey it to D, then they convey also their bona fide purchaser status to D. Then C records. They're the first to record of the B's and D's. Is the shelter rule a little bit clearer? Let me rephrase. Is it unclear? And if so, what questions do you have? All right.
I had a quick question.
Yes.
So in this case, D was a bona fide purchaser, even though the C wasn't. So how would somebody like C get to know about the original deed? Like, how would that go about proving, I guess, just from a practicality standpoint?
Okay, I think this will make a lot more sense if I can write on the slide. So what I'm going to do is you're going to have to give me a moment. Apparently when I